Bob Sansevier here with Brian Murphy and Pioneer Press Deputy Dog, John Plume. Also Deputy Sports Editor. He goes by that, too. Now, Brian, Christian Ponder didn't win, but I think it was encouraging what he did. And frankly, it's that's the reason to watch the team the rest of the way. It's not going to be to have any kind of a playoff run or even a run to a winning record. It's his development. What are some other things that you think that people could be interested along the way? Maybe AP, Peterson and what he might do?
Well, and is Percy Harvin going to be healthy the rest of the way, and what kind of a contribution is he going to be able to make? I mean, I think defensively, you're looking at, Jared Allen could be chasing Michael Strahan's sack record, or he is chasing it. Could very well get to it. He's playing as well as he's played here in Minnesota. But yeah, it's going to be Ponder. I think there's going to be a lot of people, scrutinizing how Leslie Frazier does as a coach here too, because he's come under fire for some of the decisions that he's made in game, handling some people. Punting, not punting, clock management, all of those things. Those are the things that I think fans, if you're looking for, what this team's going to be like in a year or two, those are the things they should be concentrating on.
Now, John, when you look at it, you look at it with an eye toward 2012 and beyond, as Brian had mentioned, but this team could have an entirely different look next year. Even if, let's assume, and I don't think Leslie Frazier is going to lose his job, because I think that Ziggy Wolf will give him certainly more than a year to establish himself. But a lot of these guys, these older veterans, could be gone, and it could be a financial decision, right?
Well, yeah. When you look at Winfield, Cedric Griffin, Kevin Williams, Hutchinson, McNabb, Henderson, that's $35 million.
No, McNabb is not going to be here next year. There's no question.
Of a $120 million cap. So, yeah, it's interesting. Hutchinson, his salary for next year is $7 million, but his cap number is $8.3. Winfield's playing under this contract that if he doesn't start at cornerback, his salary drops from $7 million to $3 million. So it's likely when he comes back off injury, they might just say, hey, we're going to start Griffin and Cook or Griffin and Allen just so they can get the break in salary, cut his salary to $3 million. But I don't see any way he stays on this team next year as a full-time starter. That's just not going to happen. But I think they're looking at trying to trade some of these guys, trying to renegotiate. Kevin Williams isn't the player he was. Cedric Griffin just looks like he's one or two steps slow. And it's really too bad because he signed that 5-year, $28 million contract and then had 2 straight ACLs. So, it's tough to pay a corner $4 to $5 million a year when he can't cover down the field.
Well, Brian isn't also realistic. He mentioned Hutchinson could go to 8. Nobody's going to give him $8 million anywhere. He would take. He'd have to decide if he's comfortable here and renegotiate and take a smaller salary.
Yeah, and I don't see that. I think Hutchinson right now is one of those players is in this gray area. He's really trying to be a pro. He's trying to play out his deal, but you can tell he's frustrated at the situation he's in. This is another lost season for him, and as much as he's going to want to be an upstanding guy, he's not necessarily in it for mentoring right now. He's got a year or two left, if that. I think he knows his skills are diminished a bit, and he wants one more shot at a ring, so I don't see him even trying to negotiate here. I think he'd want to move on elsewhere. John also brought up, you're making a pretty good assumption about Chris Cook. As of right now, Tuesday morning, he's still in the Hennepin County Jail. Innocent till proven guilty. There are 2 sides to every story, as his lawyer told me the other day. But if he's charged with a felony and has to go through the system, the Vikings are going to be in a tough position to try to stand by a guy that has had a couple of brushes already, and he could. He's chewing up a lot of money, and he put a lot of commitment to him as a second-round pick. What do you do?
Yeah, the interesting thing about all of this is Leslie Frazier had this reputation for being a disciplinarian. There's been 6 arrests in the past 9 months, 36 arrests since 2000. They lead the league in arrests, this team, one more than the Cincinnati Bengals. But I think you got to go back to Frazier again, Bob, in that this guy is 1-8 in his past 9 games, and I think it's worth raising the question at this point, should they have looked outside the organization for a head coach? And I think you can make a pretty good point right now with all the issues that Brian raised, in-game decisions, out-game decisions. They could have looked elsewhere. A Bill Cowher would go a long ways right now toward getting a new stadium in the Twin Cities.
Bill Cowher's not going to come here. Bill Cowher would more than likely go.
I'm just saying name coach.
Okay, let me tell you the name coaches. The biggest name available, and it may be him, maybe it could turn out to be a Gruden, But if he decides to coach again, the biggest name is going to go whoever has the pick that's going to get Andrew Luck. Because suddenly a bad team can become very good. Or if a good team, if a job becomes available on a decent team, then nobody's going to come at a team that's middling and struggling.
Go to Indianapolis. They're going to end up with him.
Well, if that were the case, what a transition from Peyton Manning to Luck. I wouldn't count those Dolphins out yet if I were you on winding up with them.
Well, I think they need to give Leslie Frazier another year or two.
I agree
put him
with
on the hot seat right now. He should be scrutinized and criticized for some of the decisions he's made in game. And I think there's some serious criticism that needs to be leveled at his coordinators, at some of their game planning and some of the buffoonery that's been out there in terms of confusion and not being in the right place at the right time. That's all on the coaching staff. But, at this point, Leslie deserves a couple of seasons to put his program together. And not only that, if you were to, come to the conclusion that he needs to go, who are you going to replace him with? I mean, Bill Musgrave, Fred Puggett, these guys are in no position whatsoever to
That's
lead
why
the
you
team
look
right now.
outside the organization. You just clean house. But
Then you're going to be paying two coaches. You're going to be paying Brad Childress and Leslie Frazier not to coach.
There's another big issue with this team, too, and that starts in the personnel department. Rick Spielman is invisible with this team. This guy doesn't talk about his first-round draft pick. Christian Ponder's going to make his first start. The guy drafted him. He's got nothing to say.
I'm not gonna defend him, but I will say this: everything you're saying or about to say, I could get on board with more if he were the general manager of this team. There is no GM of this team. There needs to be a GM of this team because there is. Brian and I were talking about this. There's three guys with equal authority: Brzezinski, Spielman, and Leslie Frazier. There needs to be someone calling the shots as the general manager, and there is no one like that on this team. I mean, this thing with Bernard Berrien. That should be dealt with the GM. Certainly Leslie Frazier should talk to him, but a general manager should be deciding what to do with him.
Well, what about Donovan McNabb? Do we have these leaks from a source saying the guy's lazy, last one in the building, first one out of the building, and it's from within the organization? Who is it? I mean, I don't think you have any of this stuff if you have a general manager or a vice president who's in charge of the pro department, the college department. It needs to be over the entire operation.
Absolutely. And it has to be more defined than it. Because right now, Spielman is the head of the personnel department. But from everything we understand, it was not he that wanted McNabb. It was Leslie Frazier who wanted
No,
McNabb.
Spielman wanted Matt Hasselbeck.
That's the point I'm getting at. A GM would have told Leslie, look, this is the guy I want. This is the guy I'm bringing in. This happened. And that's the other thing. Ziggy Wolf grew up around the Giants when it was clearly defined. George Young was the coach. When he had Parcells, they battled all the time, and George Young usually won the battle because he was the GM of the team. He made the personnel decisions.
And this was a problem last year, and one of the main criticisms with Brad Childress was that he secured or stole too much authority and basically went rogue and did what he wanted to do, and that was one of the reasons he was let go. So the question, we thought, well, maybe Ziggy would try to bring in a guru, a president, a czar, a Bill Parcells type of, manager who would oversee it all, but he opted for the internal assistant coach, and he opted to kind of keep it as almost like a
triangle of authority,
almost like a tug of war between executives. But
yeah.
I know that there are agents out there that I think are wondering, who do we negotiate with? Who's the first call that we need to make? Is it Kevin Warren? Is it Rick Spielman? Is it Rob Brzezinski? Is it Leslie Frazier? I mean, you open up their program and there's like 6 VPs, and it's I don't even know if it's a triangle. It's almost like a linear line, but it's where do you go? Where's the first call that you make?
It just seems like a lost organization at sea. It's been that way for a while now, and it all starts at the top. And with the stadium thing hanging over their heads, it could get even uglier come February 15th.
There should be a general manager because the general manager's job is to look out for the short and long-term future. A coach, you learn that with Brad Childress. The guy went to a championship game the year before, and he was gone a little after midseason. The coach has to live in the moment. The GM has to look at the future in the long run. He has to make decisions what's in the best interest now and in the future for a team. And that's why that's the biggest issue facing this team from a personnel standpoint, having someone clearly in charge of making those decisions, and they don't have one. That's more important to me than going out and looking at a cower.
And the last time they had somebody like that, and this is going back a long ways,
Mike Lynn
was Lynn, but he didn't
You can say Hedrick, but
But
come on.
Lynn did not take him to the Super Bowl. Jim Finks built this team in the 70s.
But the last one they had,
went to 4 Super Bowls in 11
yes,
years.
But however, the last time they had a GM who made those decisions we're talking about was Mike Lynn.
Yeah, and the Herschel Walker trade, nothing more needs to be said about Mike Lynn.
It doesn't. But the point is, they haven't had a GM now in decades. That's the point that needs to be made. Not that he made a little misstep with Herschel.
A Mercedes, a house, 7 draft picks, 5 players.
Well, when you're looking at big picture, when you're looking at short to long range here, it's clear it starts with Adrian Peterson, and now it looks like Christian Ponder is giving them a window to look into the future of where this team is going to be, what the front office is going to look like, what the facility is going to look like, what city they may be playing in is all unclear. But at least you have, at the quarterback position, something that you can build upon and not have a short stopgap solution.
And you know what? And I think you have 4 elite players on offense in Ponder, Peterson, Harvin, and I think Kyle Rudolph could be one of the best tight ends in football once they throw him the dang ball. Because look, everything they've thrown so far to him, or that McNabb threw to him, he's caught. And I actually thought he'd be a bigger part of the offense the other day that Ponder would be looking for, but he wasn't on the field.
The interesting thing is just how depleted the defense has become. It's two years away from the NFC Championship game, and they gave up 250 yards in that game, and now you look at this defense and you're like, what happened? Other than Jared Allen.
Age and lack of depth.
Yeah, I mean, Jared he's a tremendous player, but another guy who's just been a complete disappointment this year, and we haven't talked about him in any of the podcasts, has to be Chad Greenway. The guy, he's done nothing since he signed his contract extension. For the kind of money they're paying him, he needs to make big plays. He missed 2 key tackles on that last drive on Sunday. The guy's not getting it done, and he needs to get it done soon.
You got 2 guys getting it done, Robinson and Allen. And
Robinson's getting it done in a different way, but
I get a kick out of him. And on that note, I'm sure we'll be talking about all these Vikings in the days, weeks, months, years, and decades, and centuries, and millennia ahead.